You won't believe what happened when I got back from deployment. I walked off the plane, dropped my bag in the driveway, and saw balloons through the living room window. It looked like someone threw a birthday party, except I was the one returning home. I thought there'd been a mistake. Balloons, streamers, a festive vibe. But then I noticed the names on the mailbox. People lived here. I walked back inside, and there they were, complete strangers. It wasn't squatters or vandals, just a normal family enjoying breakfast on the deck I'd bought right before I deployed. I stepped off that taxi, and the first thought in my head was, something is very wrong. Then I heard my mom's voice echoing in my memory. She'd called me a few weeks ago when things felt strange in the house, more quiet than normal, and now quiet was the last word you'd use. They were here. The woman glanced up from her coffee and gave me a look, not fear or guilt, just the kind you give someone who doesn't belong. Her husband folded his newspaper slowly, eyes sharp, like he was studying a challenger in the ring. That was who I was to them, a challenger, the invader. And then my HOA president appeared, 60 years old, silver-haired, hair pulled back into what my mom calls a power bun. Nora Whitman. She'd been dragging me for minor infractions before I even deployed, garbage regulations, fence rules. But this, she carried herself like the house was already hers. She walked onto the porch and said, "Sergeant Shaw, you're home earlier than expected." No gratitude, no welcome, just a dry acknowledgement like I'd walked into her schedule mid-line. And then she handed me a thick folder full of paperwork, a property management agreement with my signature at the bottom in POW, but I never signed that. That signature was dated from the week before my deployment, exactly the time I was signing military-only power of attorney forms for handling benefits and banking, not real estate or emergency services. According to the paperwork, some attorney allegedly used my military power of attorney to sign over management of my house to the HOA, to use it as emergency housing under FEMA. That family eating eggs and bacon on my deck, they weren't squatters, they were hurricane victims. They were here legally, or at least under false legal papers. I looked up from the folder and felt my blood freeze. I never signed anything like that. "Dear husband," Nora said in that same benign tone, "we've been coordinating with federal relief programs. Your attorney authorized it 6 months ago. She meant to trap me into inaction, make me doubt my own memory. When the Petersons kid called out, 'Miss Nora,' casually waving from the pool, I knew they'd been here a while. I asked for the original document with my real signature." Her smile constricted. "That copy," she said, "was enough, filed with federal disaster relief offices. I asked for an attorney's name. She gave me a card, someone I'd never hired. My POA was forged. Everything had been executed behind my back. The house had been maintained, yes, so beautifully. The lawn looked better than ever. The pool gleamed. Even the mailbox was repainted. Someone had been living in my home nearly 6 months using my systems, paying apparently some fake federal compliance fees I never saw on my bank statements. I checked how long the Petersons were staying. "We review monthly," Nora said, pulling up something on her phone like she was checking her placement calendar. I asked to go inside and check my things. She stiffened. That would violate federal residents' privacy. Protecting tenants in my own living room? That was the surreal line. I turned away, watching the Peterson kids splash in the water I paid to keep clean, realizing I was being gaslit by bureaucracy. So I drove back to town. At the courthouse, the deed was clean. No liens, no easements, just plain ownership in my name. Then I checked for municipal liens. $8,000 in maintenance violations filed during my deployment, but I never got notices. Either mail forwarding failed, or someone fabricated official paperwork. Back home, I watched. The Petersons used my porch like it was public space. In the afternoon, a woman in a white sedan delivered groceries, something she called support services for relief. In a loop, the HOA had framed this as benevolent governance. I called the attorney Nora gave me. The voicemail was professional. Leave info, we'll call back in 2 business days. So naturally, I started digging. Her site looked legit, with testimonials of protecting military families who authorized emergency housing during disasters. One case study mirrored mine so precisely it felt personal. Same situation, same jargon. They'd even charged monthly coordination fees for property management. My gut turned. No way I'd authorized anything. I called her. She said she had records showing I authorized emergency housing. All fees were supposedly channeled through federal relief budgets, not my accounts. When I demanded my documents, she said they were classified legal files and I'd need to go through my military legal services. That was the loophole. Civil collusion pushing back on federal claims. Meanwhile, deliveries were showing up like I wasn't the homeowner. Pizza, compliance papers. And then, at 11 at night, a federal-looking vehicle pulled up. Men with clipboards and plastic badges came through, as though investigating my home under disaster relief authority. The bureaucracy weighed heavy. I realized I needed backup. I called Derek, my old system guy, then Lopez, the former contracts lawyer turned volunteer legal aid, and Gunner, Big G, and Doc, my team of brothers. Within hours, they were there, kilometers compressed into support. We convened in a greasy diner with the kind of stale coffee that clings to your bones. I laid it all out. Derek flagged that the property management company was registered just months ago, license even newer, tailored to latch on during my deployment window. Lopez started examining the paperwork. POA looks forged, criminal fraud on its face. Big G broke his silence, voice low. Are we going to let someone steal a veteran's home? Doc leaned back, plotting moves like angles. We weren't there to intimidate, but to reset the power. We headed back in a convoy, awesome and legal. We parked in my driveway while the Petersons scrambled out with suitcases. Lopez had printed a firm but fair sign. Property secured by owner. Derek documented it, neighbors peeked out of windows, a jogger stopped to watch. We made it clear, this house doesn't belong to the HOA. When Nora rolled up, she saw we weren't alone anymore. She said she'd consult counsel. Lopez handed her a legal aid card. She held that smile for control, but it was cracking. Before they left, Mr. Peterson asked if there was a problem with their reservation. I actually felt sympathetic. There was nothing personal about them, but they were caught in someone else's scheme. After they left, we stood. Nora called someone, nervous hands, deferential tone, defensive territory. We were no longer isolated. That night, my truck got towed, on bogus grounds, overnight parking violation in HOA. Tow company linked to her legal district. That was the escalation. Lopez checked HOA bylaws. They'd amended regulations just after I bought the house. Fabricated towing rules. I called and demanded their rule citations. The phone line dropped. Paperwork wore. Next, registered letter demanding $25,000 for unauthorized occupancy. Fake law firm, same business park. Intimidation. Lopez called it what it was. Fear tactics. But you don't break someone trained to endure. Code enforcement next. Complaints about unpermitted structures on my own property. Zoning violations. An inspector came and documented everything. Fence, mailbox, pool. Derek showed he'd found those complaints were filed the day after our gathering. This was coordinated. Then, lawn citation. The grass was too long. Tiny issue. Big, fine schedule. Big G laughed. At least now I know they'll fine me for an inch of grass. Lopez said the pile of violations actually fortified legal claims, harassment on administrative basis. We decided to turn defense into offense. We printed flyers about homeowner rights, hosted an information session in my yard. Permitted, legal, crowd came. Neighbors brought stories. One's laundry lines got flagged, another's colorful garden gnomes, another's driveway parked for an hour. The house filled with support, conversation, solidarity. A former HOA vice president came forward, screenshots of Nora targeting military-deployed addresses. She'd viewed my window of opportunity email, pre-deployment. She'd tried to push back but resigned when she realized the web. Papers swiped off boards. A local title company worker admitted she'd seen forged documents before. One victim 2 blocks over was too scared to fight. Suddenly, we were a movement. Lopez collected names and evidence. Online, fake accounts tried to discredit the gathering. But the session turned the narrative. Then Nora came and shouted about unauthorized assembly threatening neighborhood security. Her voice threw distrust, but she was met with eyes and printouts and support. She left, shaking. The former VP helped clean up. That night, we spotted a government-badged sedan surveilling us. But now we had allies. Morning, 3 patrol cars and an unmarked federal-style sedan. They investigated complaints about federal housing program disruption. Lopez had permits. The police officer recognized me, Mike Thompson. We served together. He whispered that complaints were funneled through odd channels, not proper federal procedure. He sided quietly with me. Keep documenting. We had leverage. Online, fake accounts spun tactical videos to paint me as anti-federal. But Derek uncovered that pattern. Coordinated PR war. Wednesday brought inspectors claiming federal housing compliance. 3 teams, back-to-back, violation reports. We just stood firm, documents in hand. Doc noted, bureaucratic overload is a management tactic. But we were trained for it. They were creating bad paper, but we had better. Friday Lopez heard he was being investigated by bureaucrats for obstructing disaster relief just by helping me. They were even trying to muzzle legal aid. But we were ready. We had overwhelming evidence. We prepped a federal complaint for fraud, unauthorized use of federal authority, money laundering of relief funds. Derek found data of federal-alike accounts spreading disinformation. Doc mapped behavior timelines. South of midnight, a call changed everything. FBI's federal program integrity. They were investigating wide-scale schemes targeting veterans. They had been watching the financials. Everything we suffered was now part of a federal fraud case. Nora and her family would face federal charges for fraud and racketeering. Evidence was piling up. Bank accounts frozen, asset seizure ongoing, major restitution pending. In our neighborhood, the fake regulations, fake inspections, stalking settled as agents pried the scheme apart. Derek installed upgrades. Lopez got a formal task force. Big G started a security consultancy. Doc offered pro bono medical legal clinics. And me, I unfurled the American flag I'd folded before deployment, put in on my porch. That morning, the porch I fought for felt whole again. The fake feds gone, my coffee tasted like belief. The street looked peaceful, kids playing, cars parked without fear, gardens blooming. The fraud ring had been uncovered, but more still lurked. The new legislation was drafting protections for deployed veterans against these tactics. And for the first time, I didn't feel like we were screaming at empty halls. We were heard. We weren't the only ones, but we were loud enough. If you're here, what hit you most in this story? What piece makes you think that's unbelievably real? And if you want more like this, stories people live, that's what I'm here for. Let me know which line stuck with you hardest, and let's keep the porch light on together.